Hey guys, Jason here with Damien to bring you the very first episode of our new series, TCG Revisited. So, throughout the seasons, we have learned a lot about the game, and naturally, it's been a while since our earliest deck profiles. So, I thought it would be a fun exercise for us to just go over some of the old decks and talk about what we might change and update. So, it's more of a theory crafting exercise, which might be good. So, yeah, the first episode is going to be about aggressive evolutions. So, I noticed a lot of similarities between these three decks, especially as we get closer and closer to optimizing them. Of course, all three have the aggro Evo based core that revolves around Hulkus, Emerald, Surfer, Holy Awe. I think if you try to optimize these, they all kind of converge towards a similar play style. So I'm wondering if there's anything we can reasonably do to keep them entirely separate while still being good. And my thought process here is to lean into what they uniquely bring to the table. So yeah, what are your thoughts, Damien? Are you excited to talk about these three decks? I know you kind of like all of these, right?
Yeah, I think Hydrooze is my favorite. It's so
Oh,
fast and you don't have to think much.
oh, very good. Well, I'm glad you said that because Hydrooze, when I was making notes for this, is the deck that I had the hardest time trying to come up with a concept for. So, okay, looking forward to this. Okay, but we'll go in chronological order first. So, the first deck that we'll talk about is Mono Water, air quotes Mono Water, right? This is the list that we deck profiled, and I think we can both agree that this is not exactly the best. I think T Dad is kind of gimmicky, and Damien, your new favorite card, is not featured here, right?
Yeah.
So I think just gonna go through some of my notes now. Corile, obviously, we have learned is not the best card ever anymore. So we definitely wanna swap that out for Unicorn Fish, which I think curves off the deck a lot better. I think for decks without ramp, the difference between 4 and 5 is actually huge.
Do you know do you know why Corel isn't as good as it was before?
So I think what we're comparing is like the I guess modern day like post DM's death to Duel Masters competitive heyday, which was like when the game was alive in the mid to late 2000s. I think back then you could say that maybe the game was a lot slower because as it stands now, Coral's kind of awkward, right? Because it's a 5 drop, so if you're using it as a control card, it's not quite fast enough.
Yeah.
And then if you're using it as an aggro card, well, I mean, it's 5 mana, it comes out pretty late, so it's also not fast enough for that role. And I guess like in this deck specifically, what kind of curve are we looking for, right? Maybe like guard on 1, spin slicer on 2, Hulkus on 3. And then turn 4 is like, yeah, you could play creatures, you could play like Spiral Gate in a creature, but you know what else is Spiral Gate in a creature? Unicorn Fish.
Yeah. The 5 mana cost is just a bit too much.
So there's that. And then I think, of course, so we've talked about Coral, which is the big change, and I guess the other changes. I'm looking at swapping out the emergency typhoons and T-Dads. Well, actually, I have another slide for this, and so we take those out. We put in Holy On Lucky Ball. I think when we did the previous list, we hadn't really discovered Lucky Ball yet, but don't you think it just fits the
No.
deck so well?
It's so good. Like you're breaking anyways. The effect's always pretty much always there. It's a good top deck.
And if you spin Slicer on 2, you can actually get the Lucky Ball effect on curve.
Yeah, you can.
That's so good. This starts to look a lot more like Hydrooze, but I feel like it uses the gambit pretty well because I think like Crystal Paladin is kind of Hydrooze-ish, right? Like you just clear the blockers and then you go for game.
Yeah.
Now, I do think this is the way that the deck evolves, and then the only thing that we're really going to split hairs over is do you play 4 unicorn fish, or does the fourth unicorn fish turn into like the third paladin or something? But I think this overall concept is the way to go. But I want to get your thoughts because you're also a big fan of Mono Water.
I think yeah, this does start to look a lot like Hydrus.
Yeah.
And like, it does seem a bit faster as well.
Yeah, and I guess that's what makes this a very compelling exercise, because it's like, do we just allow decks to converge into like similar concepts? But I think TCG it's a bit of art and it's a bit of science, right? And so if you go strictly on the science side, it's not as fun, but if you go too far into the art side, then you're purposely doing things suboptimally, which is also not good.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, I guess if there's no thoughts, we can just park it there. But there are some other things that I wanted to touch on are, this also looks kind of similar to the Outlier, like the Season 3 Outlier list.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like an in-between, right? Between Season 1 and Season 3 Outlier, because you got like the evolutions, like Larva Gear, but then you also have Holy All.
Yeah.
There's also like a Water Dark Rush deck that has been making rounds in the IDC, so the German Duel Masters tournaments. They run Melnia, but let's stay away from Water Dark because we'll keep that as Hydrooze territory. But yeah, anyway, so I guess we'll not spend too much time on this, but I think Mono Water, air quotes Mono Water minus the Holy Alls, it's an inherently simple concept, so I don't think there's actually too much we can do to change it. And that's why, yeah, I'm going to need your help with the Hydrooze analysis.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Hydrooze now. So this is the last Hydrooze list that we had. I think Hydrooze is actually the most difficult deck to find a niche for. I think it's in an uncomfortable, sorry, I'm not trying to dunk on your favorite, but like, I think it's in a very uncomfortable middle ground compared to the other two. I think it should probably be built with speed, but it's clearly slower than Mono Water, because like, turn 2 Spin Slicer, kind of hard to compete with. And while it's a bit faster than like Warlord Ailzonius, I don't think it's as inherently strong. So how do you think we can differentiate Hydrooze from the others?
I think it's always going to be slower just because of the multi-civ as well.
Yeah.
I think the darkness in it does make it a lot more annoying. So even though it's a bit slower, there's a lot of things that make you last a bit longer.
My thought is that Hydrooze has to run darkness, while the other decks that we're going to talk about don't, right? And so maybe let's think about what darkness brings to the table. And I think you touched on, it has a neat bag of tricks like removal and discard to help it last longer. But you know what else it has? It has graveyard retrieval. And I think this is something that we missed. Because can you imagine this deck with like Morbid Medicine or Zombie Carnival? Especially Zombie Carnival, right? Because it's a tribal deck.
Yeah. That would make the Propeller Mutants really annoying, actually.
Huh. And I'm not sure if you remember, but like in the latter days when we were playing with Hydrooze, I feel like it would run out of gas pretty quickly. Or okay, maybe not quickly, but it would run out of gas at around the turn 6 mark. And so you would just like desperately pray like, okay, I'm going to need 2 cards. I'm going to need to charge so I can hit 6 mana. And then hopefully like speed attacker Hydrooze to win. Like there were a lot of those sorts of situations.
Yeah, I had that. Yeah.
And so I feel like if you have something like Zombie Carnival or like Morbid Medicine on top of the Lucky Balls, that's like really good.
One of them's also a trig, right?
Yeah, Zombie Carnival's a trig.
Yeah, so with the Emerald would be pretty fun.
Yeah. I like the sound of that. Okay. So, what are your thoughts, though, on Windmill Mutant? Because I think we liked it a lot at first, but it also doesn't have instant gratification.
It doesn't. Also, a lot of the time, it's for Evo bait, so it never actually gets an attack off. Because by turn 4, you're evolving it anyways.
Yeah.
So it's there just as bait, but then doesn't get anything off.
Yeah. Yeah, because with Windmill, there's this very specific situation where if you have a 2-drop and then Windmill on 3 and then Hydrooze on 4, then you have like a 4K Windmill Mutant, which is really good, but that's a very specific scenario.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I think if there were more cards that were like Propeller Mutant, it'd be better.
Yeah, that's
if
true.
It was cheaper. Or if it had a on-play effect.
I guess some other things that I want to talk about are... The other card is Sea Mutant Dormel. This is something that I saw on Earth Power's channel, and it made me realize, oh my gosh, like, why didn't we play Sea Mutant Dormel? And he's basically the Hydrus version of Sirion. And Sirion works pretty well in Ailzonius, right?
Yeah.
He's Hedrian, so I feel like that is also worth playing in Hydrus. With the whole idea of discard, though, like, let's challenge this. Do you think Locomotiver... Okay, so we talked about Propeller Mutant. He's like kind of sus. And Propeller Mutant is obviously like... Sorry, Windmill Mutant is kind of sus. Propeller Mutant is like obviously really good because he's a 2-drop. What do you think of Locomotiver for the deck? Because if we're attacking with Hydrus, do we really care about discard? Is that something we want to prioritize?
I just liked having it in the deck because it was like a whole other set of trigs.
Yeah, that's true.
Pretty much had half the deck was trigs at that point.
Actually,
but 14?
14 trigs, yeah. We have 14 trigs.
So that was just fun in that fact. I don't think I would ever play it.
Yeah.
If I drew it. It was the discard that comes from it, you don't gain much from it.
Yes.
I'd rather be playing Lucky Ball and get 2 more cards.
That's true.
Putting it down with Emerald as well. But then also, I think there was just nothing else we could play, right?
Yeah, but because we're, bringing new things to the table now, we can try to really challenge Loco's position in the deck, right? Like maybe we take out Locos for Dormel. Maybe we want to play some Spiral Gate, which is also a trig, because this deck does not have Spiral Gate.
Oh yeah. I think we also had issues with Darkness mana.
Ah, that's true.
For Holios as well.
Yeah, and that's a good point.
You needed the dark by 4.
But what about some Zombie Carnival?
That would be fun. I think that would be good to try.
Yeah, right. I guess on the subject, like if we're gonna play like the likes of Zombie Carnival and Sea Mutant Dormel, that's even more reason to keep Locomotiver because it's Hedrian. Because we're probably gonna be calling Hedrian off Zombie Carnival, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, yeah. So what would you remove?
Oh, I guess
you wouldn't really play 4 carnivals, right?
No, I don't think you play 4. I think you play 2 max.
2/2.
Yeah. I think maybe you play like 2 Zombie Carnival and like 2 Lucky Ball. So that, or I don't know, 3 Lucky Ball is pretty good too. Yeah, especially because I remember there were also a lot of these times where this deck would be in like top deck mode and then somebody would top deck Lucky Ball and it's like, oh, so lucky. I feel like with 3 Lucky Ball, that's pretty reasonable, but with 2, it's like, nah.
Yeah, the carnival would be funny because when a lot of the time you get them down to like no shields and you're just trying to get that last attack in.
Yes.
But if they break into a carnival, that's all the cards you need to get your win off.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you can somehow emerald that in or something, you're pretty much set to win your next turn. Because Lucky Ball, you can get that, but you don't always win.
Yes.
You're just hoping for the 2 cards to be the ones you need.
Yeah, very true. Very true. So, okay, so I think we're sold on the idea of putting Graveyard Retrieval in this deck. Now, what do we think about Terrapit? And actually Holiaw. I guess with Holiaw, if we're gonna, double down on the idea of like, Zombie Carnival could make you win the game, we probably need to keep Holiaw in here, right?
Yeah, I think that was if you didn't get the Hydrooze.
Yeah.
Win with anything else. The Holy Oils has like it's the fun bit of winning with that deck. But then I think Terra Pit, we kept it in mostly just for the dark mana.
Yeah. And it's something that we're also never really hard casting. So what are your thoughts on... Okay, so try to visualize with me here. If we test this, we swap out the windmills for Dormels, I guess. Even though too much multi-civ is bad feng shui, but we're probably always going to hard cast those, so it's fine. And then at least two Terra Pits go towards Zombie Carnival. And then the third Terra Pit is like, whatever, we can do what we want with it. So what do you think of that? We take out Terra Pit.
I think that, Terra Pit wasn't really used that much. Because for removal, you would always go to Corel first.
Yeah. And we never hardcast Terra Pit.
Nah, never. Unless you're really desperate.
Yeah.
When you're top decking?
Yes.
There's better cards to top deck.
Yeah. And then if we just want to boost the shield trigger count again, we take out some Corel. We take out Corel for Spiral Gate.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh man, I guess that's it. That's so interesting. So I guess, yeah, because then you keep the resiliency of the deck, because you still have a lot of trigs. It's still really fun. And then you give it a stronger late game through the combination of Lucky Ball and Zombie Carnival.
Yeah.
And then Holy Awe is Holy Awe. All right, I think we did it. So it's kind of like Mono Water, but it's got like an extra bag of tricks at the cost of some speed, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. And it sounds like it'd be funner to play.
Yeah. All right. Would you say Hydrooze is in your like top 3 favorite Gauntlet decks?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think it is.
Okay, nice. So if ever I feel like we need to give up on Hydrooze, because I actually don't think it's that good. I just have to like turn to you and be like, Damien, what do we do? And then because you love it, you'll work extra hard for it.
It's just fun to play.
Yeah.
It's not very good though.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to the final deck of the video, which is Warlord Ailzonius. Now, this list is so sus because I know this because we're playing Illusionary Merfolk. So I think Warlord is interesting because based on OCG, like Water Light Beatdown is not the only way you can play it. In the OCG, we saw it take more of a mid-range approach. So think of Merino colors. So they play this like with Darkness and some slash cards. And then I think there was also a control deck for Civ No Nature that used a bunch of Belixes and then like 2 Warlords as an alternate win con. So I think these are reasonable, but maybe like the beatdown approach probably can be preserved. What do you think? Do you want to build this as a slower deck or keep it as a beatdown deck?
I think a slower deck would really make use of the Belixes a lot better. If you're playing 4, and I think from all our testing, I think we've realized that Belix is really good.
Yes.
If we can use it better, I think that would be good. It'd be interesting to try a slower approach to this. Also, I think without having the other civs, be hard because Water and Light don't have very good cheap spells.
Yeah, I think what you do is, if you play the slower, you find a way to squeeze like 2 Warlords and maybe like 2 Belmols into a deck out skeleton, and then you have a more flexible win condition. So if you don't want to like sweat it out slashing your opponent, you can just start attacking with Warlord. Okay. All right. So I guess for this video, let's spend some time talking about Warlord as a beatdown deck first, and then we can talk about some of the other applications that you might want to do with it. As a differentiator, I was thinking about building it more defensively and with consistency in mind, since it's kind of boring anyway. And so my thought process here is that Warlord has this inherent advantage over control, and so any net gains to this build will come from improving other matchups while maintaining consistency. So if we run a more stable draw engine, maybe we re-examine some of the shield triggers and like trim the fat, it'll be pretty good. Like the deck doesn't have to be multi-dimensional because it has a strong plan A anyway. So I've seen some IDC lists play TDAD, and we obviously play Bingo, but like I don't really like either of those in the deck. I feel like if we build the deck with enough draw, and if we build it consistent enough, it should be resilient to discard anyway, and then we just like our games are so heavily metagamed that like I think we know when like the clamp on 4 is coming, so we just play around that.
Yeah.
So I think off the top of my head, I think we replace Bingle with Belmol. So Belmol is this 2 mana 3.5k gladiator blocker, but it has to block each turn. So I think having an extra 2-drop blocker just helps with the aggro matchup, and it's arguably a cheaper way to play Ailzonius. So maybe we try to play like 2 Belmols. What do you think of that?
I think that's good. Yeah, I think the Bengals weren't really that great.
Yeah. And I think like Andrew developed this theory where he was like, well, you know, if they try to clamp you on 4 and then they hit Belmol, then you can Warlord Ailzonius on 5. But
we realized that people just don't clamp.
yeah. Or honestly, it's like if you play a 2-drop on 2 and then like Energy Stream on 3, like it guards you against Gradium Clamp anyway for like a Warlord on 5.
Yeah. I think when they know the options there, they'll just find other ways to control you. They don't have to discard you.
That is true. I think another thing that we can do is we can also maybe consider Energy Stream. Not so many, maybe like 1 or 2, right? So like 2 merfolks go for like 2 Energy Streams. Oh, and you know another thing that I want to play? I want to play Petrova in this. Because
Yeah, why didn't we?
Yeah, I know, right? Like, why didn't we? Because it's like extra copies of Warlord.
Yeah.
Man, we are so dumb. Yeah, okay, so I guess that's what we can do as well. So it's like we cut the Bingles and we cut the merfolks for 2 Petrova, 2 Stream, and then 2 Belmol. I think that's how we do it. How do you feel about Colon in this?
I think we only put it in because it was more material for Emerald.
Yes.
So you don't waste Emerald drops. But if we're putting in Spiral Gate, I guess it's not that value though.
Yeah.
Putting Spiral Gate into your shields.
Okay, anyway, so I guess that concludes the discussion of Warlord as a beatdown deck. But going back to what we were talking about earlier, as a slower deck, how would you want to build it? Like, you know, let's say you have access to like all the cards and like none of the other decks we have should have a bearing on your position. How would you want to experiment with a slower Ailzonius build?
I think the deck out idea is good. If you're able to put them down and they have no way of controlling you, you're getting rid of all their good cards that can do anything to affect them, which aren't many.
Yep.
If you're able to get rid of those pretty quickly, then you've pretty good odds of winning.
Yeah, it's like you slash Charger Fighter, Dual Fang, and like in Baz, and it's like, okay, you can't you cannot solve this guy.
You pretty much won.
Yeah, there you go. This is a very interesting development. You're a pretty sadistic guy, Damien. I didn't think you would be into that. I did not.
It's funny.
Yeah. So what idea do you like better though? Do you think it's cooler to use Ailzonius as a control-ish card or more of like a beatdown card?
I think the control type might be a bit funner. You get him out early and it doesn't feel it's not as satisfying because you're gonna win anyways. He's just a big guy that's beating everyone down, and his effect doesn't really come into play too often.
Right.
When you know they have cards that can deal with you, but they can't do anything with them, I feel like that's pretty funny.
Oh, I see what you mean. So if you're playing Warlord at a later stage of the game, it's like, I know you have Terrapin, which you can hard cast,
Yeah.
but like, really, can you?
Yeah, I feel like that's a bit fun doing it that way.
Okay.
Playing him early, I feel like he's just a big guy that you can play relatively early and just beating people down. Yeah, it's less fun. You can do that with a lot of other cards, other decks.
True. Well, I mean, sort of, right? I guess like it's similar when you have a Petrova focused deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that idea. Okay, nice. Well, that's certainly something to think about. Let's make a control deck with Warlord Ailzonius. Or maybe if we need to revamp the concept of foul control. Maybe we make 2 Warlord Ailzonius decks. Ooh.
What if we just squeeze him into that deck out deck?
You're just like updating your monstrosity.
We've already got Belix.
Yeah, that's true. Belix is so good. Yeah, you just take out like Future Slash and like something else, and then you play him instead.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. So that brings us to the end of the first episode of our new series. Let us know what you think in the comments, and I hope you're looking forward to the remaining episodes. There are many more discussions to be had. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.